call this meeting to order. Could I get a roll call?
Sure thing. Joey Markowski.
Here.
Jeffrey Fryer.
Here.
Megan Ramsey.
Here.
Kyle McMullen.
Here.
Clark Baker. Michael Bryan.
Here.
And absent is new member Chris Poole.
So we do have a quorum. All right, thank you, sir. Has everybody had the chance to look at the agenda?
Yes.
We got a, is there an extra one? I would say, if any modifications. Okay.
Sir. This is, it's not any different than what was mailed on the 20th, right? I think it was 20th. Oh, maybe more recent than that.
Yeah, it was more
wrong.
recent than that.
Okay, but not today. It didn't change today, did it?
No, I think there was a clarification on the
Yeah.
map.
Okay,
But that should.
I saw that.
So
Okay.
I don't see anything else that's different. Good. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay, has everybody had a chance to review the minutes from last month?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any changes that you see need to be made?
Yes. Typo on the time of conclusion. Put 4:52.
4:52.
I believe it was 6:52. So
Okay.
I'll need to get that changed other than that.
All right, any other items that anybody noticed? Okay, so we need to amend the time to, the adjourn time to 6:52. To have a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. All righty. Okay, we would like to invite some conversation. We are wanting the public to give us some feedback on maybe not reimagining, but modernizing what our downtown looks like. So we would like some feedback from people. I've invited people from various organizations that are specific to downtown and the historic preservation of Batesville, and I would like them to join us up front if they wouldn't mind, because we would like to understand what they see as their vision for Batesville moving forward, so that as we look at possibly changing the land use plan and potentially zoning, we make sure that we do stuff that falls in line with what your vision of what Batesville's Main Street and downtown area needs to look like. So anybody that is here that I had invited, would you please? That's you too, Amy.
Anybody else gonna stand? Go, Maggie.
Come on, Amy.
Well, no, I was just like, if you all have opinions, then. I'm just here to support Maggie.
Well, I mean, I don't honestly feel like I have much difference than what I was explaining. I know I talked to Jeffrey a little bit, and I've talked to you on the phone. There's nothing that stood out to me that I would be against by any means. When I was speaking, I was thinking, are we talking about the top portion, or are you guys talking about it as a whole? Because the way I was thinking was a little up, like 4th, 5th Street. Is that the direction you're talking about?
I would say all-encompassing.
Okay,
Pretty
all-encompassing.
much what we consider the downtown
Like downtown, like the
area.
commercial
There's a bit-
district?
Yeah, there's a bit of a gray transition area that's starting to happen.
Okay,
as we
that's
get
what
down
I
there.
was wondering
So-
there. So I thought it was more of a little bit of a conversation as like an expansion of that a little.
Yes. Main
is-
Street versus the parallel streets and the
Mm-hmm.
perpendicular streets that intersect and run behind it. You know,
Okay.
what started this conversation was, you know, we do have some guidelines that if you want to put residential into a commercial property,
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. But it says that the bottom story street facing unit must remain commercial. And that makes complete sense for Main Street. Then we started asking, but what if it's on Water Street? What if it's on College? Do we feel that those rules should still apply? So that's where
I
we started.
personally don't. I don't think that should apply. I think everybody here knows that we're in such a housing crisis as it is, but not only just that reason, I think downtown area as a whole, we're kind of missing these lower end or medium end housing options. Right now, of course, you have your residential area at the top of Main. That's not, those are higher end homes, if that makes sense. I think that we do have a lot of room in the downtown area for townhouses, apartments, anything of that sort, because we do have a lot of life down there, and that's a piece that we're missing, especially for younger families that maybe aren't at that point in their life yet to be able to be, up top necessarily, but to have more of those medium income housing options, I think is a great need in the entire area that we're talking about.
Fantastic.
And Joey, I don't think it's clear, but I think the downstairs commercial, upstairs residential, the case that we talked about like the Gray's Hospital area, I would assume that everybody would kind of agree that that was meant towards existing structures as well. It doesn't specify in the code, but I mean, if we're trying to revitalize the area, then we wouldn't necessarily want to restrict new construction with that, but we do want to maintain our historic buildings, and that wasn't appropriate,
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
So I think what everybody's looking for is, like, in your mind, what would it be if there was something downtown that would draw all these people to it to make them want to do those things, make them want to build those townhouses? Is it more commercial? Is it more, stores for them to get groceries in, close to home? Is it the homes themselves? Is it, what do you envision as a perfect, if everything was filled out?
I do think
how would
there
it be mixed up?
The thing that we're missing right now is like those communal green spaces, so that's not necessarily commercial. There is always room for commercial growth as a whole. If we're talking about just commercialized, we do need more kind of what you're talking about, like whether it's like a mom and pop type of like grocery store, something that people in this area can easily navigate to. Walkability is a huge thing in this area in general. If we even consider going, 3 streets over, we're in West Side. Several of those families don't even have a car, so that's another version of walkability, but not even going that far. That's kind of the whole point in downtown itself. It's just the one area of town that has that. So in order for us to bring people in that way, I think we're missing that. Pharmacy, just like your daily needs. I think otherwise our commercial is pretty well rounded down there. So those would be mine, is a little bit of bigger properties that could be converted to something like that. But to talk about bringing people in, the one thing I'm always going to talk about is quality of life, and we're just missing those communal spaces. If you follow us at all, we do it in the middle of the street. That's where we do absolutely everything, is blocking the streets. If we had pockets of places on College Street, there's perfect opportunity for some public spacing there. Gray's, once that comes down, there's no reason that can't be residential, but that front street facing is more of that communal green space that attracts people to want to live in those areas.
So you think it's kind of what Northwest Arkansas has done?
Yep.
Intertwined the other systems to get the quality of life.
Yep, absolutely.
It's not strictly a street. There's plenty of streets down there.
Exactly.
They're not real fun to drive on sometimes, but
agreed.
What you're saying, what you think will get people down there, which will then draw in these other businesses and stuff, is going to be that walkability and that connection.
Is that connection.
Pedestrian, bicycles and stuff.
Have any of your organizations had any studies done? Because we've heard similar conversations about a convenience store, a pharmacy. I think that they feel that it's almost there, but I think the concern was there's not enough people that live close enough to it to support it.
I'm happy to send that to you. I do have some. Mine is very late, I think it was November of 2024, so it's a little over a year old, but I'm happy to send that to you because we actually have our studies done a little closer to the downtown area too. So ours is necessarily a 5-mile radius, a 15-mile radius, and a 25-mile radius. So it doesn't encompass the entire city of Batesville. It's strictly for that downtown area. So I'm happy to email that over
So
to you.
it should have some, what we need for housing close to Main Street, what we need for green
So
spaces potentially.
I'd have to go back and revisit it, to be honest with you. I think the one that I'm referring to is more of the commercial side that we're talking about. Have to go back and look at the residential portion of it, but it tells you what we're missing commercial business-wise within that radius.
That'd be very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Because I think we want to explore that. One of the comments that Rob Middleton had made was, there used to be car dealerships fairly prevalently down in this area, and that's really not something you see anymore.
No.
It
There
makes
used
sense.
to be a pharmacy.
Used to be.
There was the new drugstore. It was Dr. Waldrop's daddy had it. And remind me to tell you why it went out of business.
Okay.
It's hilarious.
I think
It used to be a grocery store. There was a Kroger where the Polk Bayou Outfitters is now.
And I think most businesses looking to build a new location would rule it out because of access. Like, the access is such that you're not going to draw enough people in from outside of downtown to support the business.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of what we see, is that if it's not small enough to be supported by the immediate area, it's not going to be big enough to be a big store and come into downtown. They're going to go somewhere on
Exactly.
a high-volume road.
Yeah, over on Harrison, which I agree with that, and that just goes back to the type of businesses that are in the downtown district too. We don't necessarily, like, I'm not saying we need a Kroger in there, we don't need a Walgreens, but we need a version of that, a smaller scale of that.
But you realize what you asked for is like the hardest thing to ask for.
Yeah, I know.
The green spaces and trails requires coordination and planning between private individuals and city government and donations and grants and
Which is
A lot.
all our work is in. So I understand. That's why, I've been doing this for 4 years, and we are just now at the table to have conversations like these because we've been in behind closed doors having the same conversations about it too. It is nothing that happens overnight, but I think if you're asking me personally and what I see downtown every day, that's the missing link.
yeah, the city's Greenway Trail, that's, an expansion of it is what it probably should be.
Exactly.
What do you feel about parking if we were to be able to do things that would help with growth in these areas? Do you feel there's adequate parking, or do you feel that needs to be something that we would want to blend in as well?
I think that we do need more parking, but I don't think it's to the extent that everybody thinks it is. The problem with parking is people don't know where it's at, and that is signage. I would love to see A&P invest in some of that. People don't know where to park, and if it's not visible to them and easy when they're driving down the street with direction of where to go, then your first comment is there's no parking down here and we're driving to the other side of town.
And-
You're gonna walk your back 40 of Walmart more than you're gonna walk the 4 blocks of downtown, but people don't register that because they don't see the parking. Does that make sense?
Right, and there's probably a lot of private property that could be used for
Yes.
parking if there was permission and signage and such like
And a
that.
lot of them, even down there, we've already had those conversations and are willing to let those spaces, but they're not gonna cough up the money to do the signage and let people, does that make sense?
Right.
Like, they'll give their property for it, but they're not writing the check for the signage.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So just looking at the Greenway, it looks like, I guess it's along maybe Ringgold Street, and I think some of that's already zoned like I-2 area. Are you looking for more commercial? I know that area is specifically kind of, there is a heavy industry or industry
I was fixing to say,
down
it's a
there.
lot of industrial.
Which, having some of that area possibly rezoned, would that open up more? Say we get
I think that would
commercial
open up more
Greenway.
potential opportunity, yes.
How far do you feel would be the scope of where you would envision it? Water Street's, you kind of
Yeah,
have a
can't
natural
really.
boundary there, but there's a lot to be said as far as how far you want to go towards where the factories are at, maybe past Harrison, those areas. Do you envision that as part of your Main Street area, or do you feel there's a kind of a natural street boundary that?
I would say, me personally, I think even just looking at this, what I have, Boswell is natural to me, but then even Fowler Street over. I think anything past that would probably be outside of what I would say,
Okay.
or I would see. I mean, I know that I couldn't ever go any further than that. So.
Well, and I don't think it's not necessarily that it doesn't need the same kind of attention.
Right.
Probably just a different style, more residential revitalization, and possibly something else over by the plants versus Main Street area where you're probably wanting a pretty diverse mix of stuff.
Oh, agreed.
Right.
I mean, I would guess.
agree.
I would guess you'd be picking out individual parcels. As far as the land use plan goes, I mean, that's kind of your intentions as to what you envision it being.
Absolutely.
The zoning controls it, but it's what you envision. So, you start picking off places that would make good parks and moving in that direction kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, like you said, if you know of something down there in that industrial area that's technically more commercial or whatever the case may be, proposing something like that would be where to start on the land use plan.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Because you're not going to knock huge chunks off and accomplish what we're
No,
trying.
absolutely.
Right, because that's what it was before.
So Rob, what would be in our tool bag as far as zoning that would allow for something this diverse with the mixed use?
A couple things strike me. One is that the land use plan is fairly generic, fairly general. I think what would make a whole lot of sense as we're talking here is that there be a specific area plan in this area, and that plan should be more specific about where would be good locations for trails, green space, parking, I mean, all sorts of things. It could be a little expensive, but that would make more sense. And then, at some point in the future, somebody looks at the plan and says, I think I'd make an investment there because that's a good location, in which case that would drive the zoning change. But the zoning would have to be clear that what's allowed and how it's allowed is specifically geared to the plan. So I think there's two levels of planning that ought to go on here.
And I mean, like our previous discussion, I think, like you said, the downtown area was what it used to be, and it was marked that way, and it was fairly expansive. So if we're talking back to the historic structures, the Main Street buildings, we can really narrow that historic area down, whether that's...
I guess I would add that there's several different definitions now about what downtown is, and they don't talk to each other. And the land use plan simply defines an area as downtown. And that doesn't explain at all what the uses ought to be in that area. That's why I think the plan should try to pull all of those pieces together and say, okay, this is the Main Street part of it. It has its own unique objectives. This is another part where we think some residential high-end should locate. This is the kinds of things that we'd like to allow at this scale.
Yeah.
Is there any other input, feedback from anybody here or anybody else in the audience? All right, thank you
That's it. All right,
both.
thank
That
you
was very, very
guys.
helpful, very helpful. Any further discussion before we move on?
And I kind of like what Rob's stated. We can get something maybe ideal for the entertainment district, or we can kind of follow how that the Greenway is, and if it's something that there is some type of structure or entity that's going to be within those type of boundaries, we can try to get something in place for that.
And that same study would be beneficial for further greenway planning and grant application and stuff like that. It benefits the city on grant fronts on several different grants.
Yeah, absolutely, especially if they know we're planning to move that direction.
Should recommend city council do that for us.
Can we do that?
Recommend that they study something? Sure.
Doesn't equal spend money.
It's true. But we can recommend it.
Did I hear a motion?
Yeah, I make a motion that we recommend the city undergo a planning study to further the development of downtown and the Greenway.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Could you repeat that a little bit louder?
So I make a motion for the planning commission to recommend to the city council to conduct a study to further develop this downtown and the Greenway.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Motion passes. All right. On to item number 7, the addition of missing sections to revised chapter 14.08. It'll be light industrial and general industrial district, I-1 and I-2.
Were these definitions just omitted to begin with? Just weren't
Yeah,
there?
this is language that should have been in. For whatever reason, it wasn't included in the ordinance that adopted it. I had a good discussion with the city attorney, and while we could call it a scrivener because it was intended, it would be better that it be in the form of an ordinance to update and add it. And I recall if that requires a public hearing.
Is there anybody from the public that has any comment? I do not see any show of hands or any comments. So, can we move forward to discussion? Is there any questions anybody here has? Can we simply make a motion, Rob, to,
We need to make a motion to approve and recommend to the council that they adopt by ordinance.
can I get a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes. So number 8 is somewhat similar. The deletion of chapters 14.3, 14.20, and 14.28. And those, let's see, severability at effective date, building setback lines, and mobile homes.
We had discussed this multiple times over the past, but a decision was made that when we were updating multiple sections of the zoning code, not to dump it all at once on the city council, to do it incrementally. And this was one of those, it's housekeeping. These come from old ordinances dating back into the 70s and 80s. And they're appropriate to an ordinance, but not to the code. So recommend deleting them. The only question in my mind is whether we should also, because one of these, 1413, there is currently in the code 1414 is signs. And if you delete 1413, it leaves an open space in the code. We could put that's reserved, that's an option, or we could simply move 1414 and change it to 1413. And so after the public hearing, I'd like to hear what you think would be a good recommendation on that score.
And is there any practical issue with changing the number on the chapter?
I checked, and there is no other reference in the code to 1414. It stands alone. So it would be fine with changing it to 1413.
Any discussion?
I'd say we'd leave 1413 reserved, just for the fact of if anybody does happen to come across something where it says 1413 and it actually should be what was deleted, we still have that reference, keep 1414 as is. Just keep it simple. Just
So there's that thought.
Reserved.
And you open up to a public hearing.
All right. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come forward? Doesn't appear we have anybody from the public that would like to make a comment, so let's move forward to a motion. I guess the motion would be including, do we need to make 2 separate motions, or can we include?
It'd be one motion, and it depends on if your motion, if there's a general agreement to leave 1413 reserved, then that would be part of the motion.
Can I get a motion?
Yeah. I'll make a motion for the deletion and then also the reservation of 1413.
Second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Okay. Next item is number 9, design options of the proposed Gottschalk development. I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Freer. I'm going to recuse myself from this because I have an interest in it.
No, I think this is a different one. They've had some things signing on, some just changed it.
Good evening, Jeffrey Fryer. Joey said we've got the next one, the agenda design options of the proposed Gottschalk development that we discussed at the last meeting. And we decided at that time to push it to this meeting to allow time to review the proposals and the plans. So anybody in the audience that would like to come forward if we got any discussions regarding this project.
Barrett Moore, I presented to you at the last meeting, and I'm happy to answer any new issues, but essentially this is the same proposal we presented last time. I hope you've all had a chance to review it.
I think everybody had time to review it. Any questions, discussions?
Yeah, I had a question. The conversation before was if there was a provision to allow for a separate garage or shop, and then there was also a provision that would trigger the rest of the update of the driveway if a house was built. I don't think those two should be differentiated as far as the fire code goes. Any building would trigger that necessity. So are we meeting fire code? Is the plan to meet the fire code with the 20-foot width and a full pavement section per city street standards?
I don't know about City Street. My understanding is that we have, as we had last time, worked this out with the fire chief, and we have a proposal which we've submitted which satisfies the fire chief that this construction would be to fire code. My understanding is the proposal is if a home is built, not if a detached garage was built, but if a home was built on, and I think practically speaking, it's going to be lot 3, not lot 1. I've got my lot numbers correct, where if a home is built there, then the existing driveway would be expanded to 20 feet in width.
Yeah, so, but again, the other property was if an adjoining property owner had the right to build the shop, so it should
That's right.
carry the same, requirements.
As proposed, it does not. Right now, the current proposal is only if, as I understand it, is only if lot 1 or 3 were developed to put a home on the theory that people would be living in the home.
Right. Am I correct, Chief?
That's acceptable.
A shop be built on it?
Oh, no, yes.
If they build a shop, it needs to be treated the same way as building a house. Because the fire code says building.
If they build a shop, it's going to be access to the current driveway anyway. So,
The idea is, as I understand it, it's when another family or living unit, single-family unit moves in to expand the driveway.
Yeah, right, but that's not what the fire code says.
Well, I'll defer to the fire chief on what the fire code says.
Well, the way I interpret it is a dwelling. And what we say is a dwelling, in my opinion, is a livable structure. And like I say, that's my interpretation.
Can I read it to you?
Yeah.
Facilities, buildings, or portions of buildings hereafter constructed shall be accessible in fire department apparatus by way of an approved fire apparatus access road with an asphalt, concrete, or other approved driving surface capable of supporting imposed load of 75,000 pounds. So
75,000.
So it doesn't matter whether it's a shop or a residence. And in fact, I would say a shop's probably more likely to burn down than a house.
To be honest with you, I don't have an answer. the way I was understanding it, and I never even acknowledged or even registered that there was going to be possibly a shop built back there. I thought it was only, we were talking about dwellings.
Detached garage is the language in the proposal. So if somebody who, right now the Wadleys who are here are purchasing the 5.01 acre tract immediately to the east of their home, and so they could build a detached garage there if they wish. So there is a provision for building a detached garage, which would be accessible from their home.
Yeah, an example, anybody could build a home and then have a detached garage or a shop building, say, quote, shop building back behind it, and there wouldn't have to be, in my opinion, have to be a city street built to that garage building. You could go through the driveway, the driveway would have to be such to the house that built the garage to make it to where we could have access to the shop building if it caught on fire. Does that make sense?
Typically, a detached garage is going to have easy access from your house, and
typically it'd be on the same parcel.
Most of the time, your detached garages will only have maybe electricity going to them and not full service.
I think practically speaking, at the moment, it would either be the Wadleys doing this on the lot they're purchasing, or Mr. Pepper, who's buying the Bryant's home. If he were to acquire Lot 3, instead of a home being purchased there or placed there, he would put potentially a garage and have the option to do that if he wanted to, which would then be accessed through his driveway. I assume the Wadleys would want to connect with their existing driveway and home if they did that. But
Mr. Middleton, do you have anything to put?
When we discussed this last month, we hadn't really not much of a chance to look at it, but the discussion really centered around whether there needed to be a street or whether it should be access easements. Now, I could probably still make a case by why it needed to be a street, but I don't really have a huge problem with the access easement, but I do have another problem that's a little more significant. What's being overlooked here is that no property can, the use of a legal description other than reference to a plat approved by the Planning Commission in accordance to these regulations. You cannot do a meets and bounds description of property. And its only exception to that is if the lots are 5 acres or more. And that's what the original proposal was. The introduction of parcels to be sold to an adjoining property owner creates lots that are less than 5 acres to be carved out of this larger parcel, either one lot or the other lot, having parcels carved out of it. That automatically triggers a full subdivision review, including preliminary plat and final plat. And the other thing that you should be aware of is that the subdivision regulations specifically do not allow any waiver of any zoning requirements. And this would constitute a lot subdivided out which did not meet the requirements for R1 zoning district in the area. So basically, if you wanted to do it, it'd have to be a subdivision review. The original proposal was to be 5 acre lots, which did not require subdivision review if a street was built, or in the vernacular, legal access, frontage to a legal access. And I don't really argue with that if it hinges on the fact that that legal access is not specifically defined in that section of the code. Fair enough. But it is a separate lot. It's just not as being marked as tract 4 or 5 or 6. Therefore, this can't be approved by the Planning Commission as it currently stands. This is not ripe for approval because it's either a subdivision with lots over 5 acres or it's a full subdivision with at least 1 or 2 lots smaller than 5 acres.
And you're referring to the small tract that Mr. Bill is purchasing?
It's not identified as a lot, but in fact it is a subdivision of the property.
What about a replat?
Replat of what?
Well, if he has adjoining, if this property is to be a buffer and you have a supplemental bill of assurance for that subdivision.
He's carving lots out of an existing parcel, and that is a subdivision.
Well, to creating a bigger lot for himself, though.
But it's subdividing an existing property. And like I said, defining a piece of land by metes and bounds is prohibited. It has to be done by way of a subdivision plat. And that's what, basically, you're trying to solve or resolve an issue that doesn't have anything to do with the development that's being proposed. It has to do with the possibility of there being a dispute over property.
And does it change anything if Mr. Bell purchases it from the estate of Steve Bryant's estate, or does that have any effect on it?
We can, we didn't have to necessarily expose this in our proposal. We wanted to be above board and tell you what we were doing. And I mean, it is an essential part of the agreement is for Steve to have, my client Steve, to have a small L-shaped area around his existing Lot 1 to Southridge and Eagle Mountain to give him a buffer zone. Part of that that he's getting a deed to, I think he's already acquired by virtue of boundary by acquiescence or adverse possession. So, I mean, I think he already has legal title, just not record title to at least part of this. But there is some part that he doesn't own that he is acquiring that's to the east of his property to make the L. I mean, I think you have authority to vary and waive under the planning code. There's a Board of Zoning Adjustment. This is also the same group that acts as the Board of Zoning Adjustment. I think you have authority to allow that, allow this to occur.
A variance could be approved by the Board of Zoning Adjustment, but it has a very narrow scope of what allows it to be approved, and it has to be some condition of the property itself that does not allow the reasonable use of the property. And with all this large acreage that's available, I don't think that that would apply. Even though, and besides, that's a different board that has to make that decision, not the Planning Commission for a subdivision. And I'll say it again, the issue here is whether the pieces of property that he wants to acquire or did acquire is by a metes and bounds description as opposed, which is prohibited, as opposed to a subdivision, which is the only way you can record property in the new property in the city.
And just my opinion, but I don't think that this proposal, I'm glad everybody agrees, but I don't think it follows the policy and the purpose of the Planning Commission and the intent of the city. Now, Damon, I disagree with your comment last time about you not having any skin in the game. This is your skin in the game. And I don't think that this proposal fits with appropriate planning for efficient, safe. It could affect fire ratings. It's almost definitely going to create the possibility for legal issues in the future. You're including subjective language for people to have to decide what requires maintenance. It's bad all the way around as far as planning goes. It does not follow with the intent and the policy of this commission and the city.
I think the lawyers who've looked at this are okay with and comfortable with the language that we're putting in the deeds.
And Damon, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a similar situation to this that already exists over by the high school, and was one of the main reasons that spurred the code that we have now, the adoption of the code that we currently have, was to prohibit cases like this. Is that not correct? That is correct.
Somewhat similar.
From the man that did it himself, from his mouth. My dad said that.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the high school situation. I know that this situation is unique to this particular area and development because of the topography, this existing driveway, and the unique narrow access that's there between Eagle Mountain Boulevard and the existing home, and the desire of the owner of the rest of the property to create other lots for development, which they have the right to do.
Right. Like I said, I'm glad that everybody agrees and everybody's entitled to desire what they want, but the city needs to be concerned with how it's done and what's planned.
I guess my concern is what purpose are we serving by saying the subdivision regulations, the zoning regulations are triggered by a 0.2 acre L-shaped buffer zone around Lot 1 to Southridge. What public interest are we serving by saying that has to happen?
The clear language of the code. And I'll say it again, the Planning Commission in this case cannot change or waiver any provision of the zoning code.
So I have copies for you. I haven't seen anything about this. I do have a copy of the Board of Zoning Adjustment regs. I should have enough for everybody if you want to see it. You do have authority there, and this, it even has a footnote. The Board of Zoning Adjustment shall consist of the entire membership of the Batesville Planning Commission. You also sit as the Planning Commission. If that's really a concern, you have authority, switching hats, to also grant a variance under the
Not at
zoning
this
code.
meeting. It requires a public hearing.
We're having a public
Public
hearing.
notice.
So you could grant it contingent upon another hearing and allowing the public to come and object to that particular issue.
And
if you
again, we
chose
still
to.
don't have the hardship required for the variance. We have a personal preference.
The other thing that concerned me was that some of the boundary lines shifted between the map that was presented, the two maps that were presented last month, and the map that came in at the end of Thursday. And I just wanted to be real certain that we weren't, because the boundaries shifted, I wanted to measure. So I used my mapping software and determined that lot track 2, as a result of the boundary changes, is less than 5 acres. Now that could be corrected, but you couldn't approve this at this point because it's less than 5 acres. And it may be, because I don't see any numbers on the lots like I've seen before, so I don't know. I had to make an assumption because I didn't see any of the other language on the map different from what was proposed before. And so I had a question about whether it still met the 5 acre minimum.
So do we have a we have a survey, right?
May I speak?
Sure, go ahead.
We have a survey by Keaton Johnson that is in your packet. I believe the middle piece is what you may have missed, because the middle piece was adjusted to make sure that every one of the parcels has over 5 acres.
But I saw no dimensions on it to prove that they expanded the boundary so that it could still be 5 acres, because you took a quarter of an acre away from it with the proposed sale of
And
property.
it was absorbed in. But we have a preliminary plat from a state certified surveyor that has done numerous work in that area in this city. He has assured us that they're over 4 acres, or over 5 acres, 5.01 exactly, or more.
But I'll say it again, that's beside the point.
Right.
One of the lots is smaller than 5 acres.
And I also remind you that the city attorney has said that we have the ability to provide the waiver, and he said, quote, "I don't see any reason why you would deny it."
City attorney is in possession of new information, and he said point blank that he would have to change his mind based on this information, but he hadn't done so.
I'm not. I wish he was here if that were the case.
He and I have spoken about this extensively, and I haven't seen this new information from earlier today. I haven't seen it. I don't know what was said. I have an idea, which is why I reacted with your authority as the Board of Zoning Adjustment. But I don't understand the city attorney's position to have changed under the subdivision regulations. I think maybe there's another step if you guys really want to require that step, but I still think you have the authority ultimately to say, hey, the technical requirement of the legal subdivision regs and zoning regs, if you're looking at that, is not served by allowing development where an existing lot in the Southridge area is expanded by 0.2, 0.3 acres around its boundary to allow a buffer zone. And that seems pretty logical to me and to serve the public interest.
I would simply suggest that you can't act on this tonight, and you might want to request that the city attorney look at the information that was provided to you this morning.
Last time we said, tell us everything. The proposal we're here tonight on is the same proposal we had last month. Are we going to do this again in a month, or there's other concerns? We want to make sure we're satisfying all the requirements that the city has, which is why we've been upfront about it. But at some point, the target's got to stop moving.
Target's the subdivision code.
You received all my comments this morning.
I did not receive them.
Well, out of respect for everyone's time, I think we can make a decision to either bring it to a vote tonight, which you used the word logic a while ago, and I think there's some logic in people that are living in the area agree to what's going on, which is in the public's best interest. So, you know, I don't know what the...
How is creating possible future legal issues and getting the city roped into it in the public's best interest? Again, the people that live around it is not the entire public. And this affects more than the neighbors. And this property could be well accessed from Gap Road. There is no need to do this. This is personal preference.
Access from Gap Road.
Yeah.
It's not a thoroughfare. It's not from Gap Road into Eagle Mountain Boulevard.
Yeah, I understand that.
So
These properties, these parcels that they're discussing creating could be accessed better from Gap
on the
Road.
backside.
By me, and meet the subdivision requirements easily.
I'm familiar with some of that territory.
You could even invoke your hillside regulations then.
So if you're conceding that the hillside regs apply there, they would
No.
apply to Eagle Mountain too?
No, they don't apply because you're just up at the top. And like Mr. Rob said, if you want to go through have an engineer do the calculations and spend some more money and prove that it meets the hillside regulations,
The easement
You can do
on
that too,
hillside
but it-
regulation only applies if an engineer determines that the slope is greater than 18% on the area in question.
And that's for a
The area in
subdivision.
question would be where the street or the driveway would
So
be.
let's back up to the property that Mr. Bell is buying. If that were not to be happening, would you have an issue with moving forward with this as presented?
As long as those other 3 lots were clearly 5 acres, and I'd want to confirm that. And it still has to meet the fire code. But without the carve-outs for Mr. Bell, if it came in like it was originally proposed and only 5-acre lots, then yeah, that could be approved without planning commission approval. The only approvals that were really required under that circumstance were any waivers from the requirements of the subdivision code, but not the zoning code.
how about this? I make a motion that we remove that 5-acre from the code and declare that everything within the city limits is important enough for the planning commission to oversee.
If you want to do that, you're going to have to hold a public hearing to change the code.
Let's do it.
Barrett, you mentioned that the proposal is the same tonight as it was in last month's meeting.
Yes.
I thought that the proposal in last month's meeting was a 12-foot thoroughfare.
It is. It's the same proposal that's here tonight. It's 12 feet is existing.
Okay.
And then once there's construction on lots 1 or 3 that includes a home, the existing driveway's width would be expanded to 20 feet to comply with the fire code. And that we
Okay.
discovered the fire code issue prior to the last meeting and addressed that. Yes, so it's the same thing.
That's what I understood for tonight's proposal, but I
Yes.
didn't know that that was what was proposed last month. I wasn't privy to that. All right.
Something to also be aware, if it gets approved and there's a driveway that ends up being access to 3 homes, there will not be garbage. They will have to roll their garbage cans to Eagle Mountain Boulevard. The garbage truck will not go up a shared driveway. That's not going to be built to they're very heavy. When the city's not going to potentially damage a driveway.
And I think we knew that talking to Damon, and so, I mean, I think that Mr. Pepper's okay with that. I think he's moved in early because they had to have a place to go live, so I haven't seen him roll his trash can up the hill yet, but I'm assuming he will.
Can I say something?
Sure.
So, Doug Gottschalk, by the way. So I look at this a couple different ways. Obviously, this is going into the 3rd, going into the 4th month if we delay it again, so I appreciate a vote tonight. If an issue is that expanded area of Mr. Bell's behind his property, you had maybe mentioned, is that something that the estate could have sold him before we even do all this? Maybe that's an option. Or maybe we can just take that out of the whole equation. That was something that kind of came out of it. That piece could be done prior to this whole sale from the Bryan estate themselves, if that makes things easier. And then everything else is greater than 5 acres. We have had gone through the survey, and everything is 5.01 acres or more, except for that small portion that Mr. Bell wanted behind his house as a buffer for that driveway. So if that's the only thing holding that up, there's ways to fix that. So I have to keep pushing this down the line.
Sure.
We just want to be upfront and make it clear that that's was part of our arrangement and not try to hide the ball that was happening. But I mean, it could close separately or happen in a separate conveyance. And these are all separate conveyances that are closing simultaneously by contract.
Well, I mean, Mr. Middleton knows a lot more than I do about this stuff, and you do as well. Like I said, I think we've got, everybody in the neighborhood is in agreement, and how do we resolve this and move forward and not have to do this again next month? I'm fine with bringing it up for a vote tonight.
I am too. You know, we asked for input from our city attorney, and we got it. If he's changed his mind, he certainly could have and should have let us know before this meeting. But, you know, my training involving this indicated that, you know, we utilize our city attorney, and we're best advised to follow their counsel.
I will say one thing on the fire codes. As far as access to a shop building or something, yes, there will have to be access. That being said, there's no sleeping in the shop per se, I think that we're probably okay with what we're talking about.
Does this situation stand the chance to affect Batesville's fire rating?
Probably not.
But could it?
To be quite honest with you.
But could it? Because that affects the public at whole and all of our insurance rates.
There's not a yes or no answer to that. I mean, there's really not, and the reason being is unless you've dealing with ISO and how to get fire ratings and stuff, there is a huge, big picture and huge formulas that you have to go through to make all this compiled information do a fire rating. It's not a yes or a no on almost any of it.
So again, this proposal stands the possibility of affecting the public as a whole negatively and involving the city.
Yeah, I mean, I ain't gonna tell you no.
No, I'm not. I wasn't asking you to answer. I wasn't asking you to answer that. That was my comment.
But I definitely can't say yes either. And like I say, yeah, I just.
So the intention of this commission is to safeguard health, safety of the public. So I feel that this proposal goes against that at least somewhat. So I make a motion that we deny it. If y'all want to vote on it tonight, my vote is no.
I don't think I think it gets confusing to make a motion to deny. So I'll make a motion that we approve the proposal as submitted. And then you vote.
Clerk, please read the motion. Second by Kyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, on the next order of business, item number 10 is the Eagle Mountain amended master bill of assurance. This is a little bit unique, but when Eagle Mountain was created, they put it specifically in their subdivision regulations, or bill of assurance, I guess you'd say, that if they were ever amended, they had to get approved by the, is it the planning and zoning, Barrett?
Yep, it says, it's weird. Planning Commission is on the page we need. Batesville Planning Commission. So that's why we're here.
Here we are.
The city attorney has indicated that the planning commission or the city approves a bill of assurance. The only thing that is required is that the bill of assurance be submitted to staff to make sure that there isn't anything that would violate a city ordinance or, well, that would violate a city ordinance. And as long as the staff concurs, and if necessary, if the city attorney concurs, then the best you can do is say, we find nothing contrary. But you do not approve because that's a private legal document.
What do we need to do to meet the burden of the written?
I sent a memo to staff about a couple of things. There was some setbacks that had been changed that weren't reflected in this. There were only two places, I think, where there was a difference between what the current zoning code requires and what was written there. And those could reflect back to what the code currently says and take out that approval section on page 16 or 18 or wherever it is. Then, I mean, if they make those changes, then it would be consistent.
So unfortunately, some of you may know this, we've had to go through a 2.5-year process to get enough signatures on this amended and restated bill of assurance to have enough votes to meet the current mandatory standards. So any changes to this would require us to restart that effort. So we don't want to do that. Now, Kyle's the president of the board, he can say that, but we spend a lot of time trying to get enough people to approve this. I don't know that it requires planning commission approval. It's just that it's something that is there and says it. So we want to try and comply with the intent of the original master bill. And I agree that whatever is in the master bill currently, if it's changed, we're still subject to all laws that apply.
Yeah, and there was only a couple of places where there was any difference, and they were minor. I think they said that a garage could be within 5 feet of the rear property line, and I think that's now 15 or 20 feet. And there was one other. And those are the only things. They were not major, but just to make them consistent would be the only changes I'd suggest.
What I would think the proper way to deal with that would be we let the realtors who are selling land know, or for development, to the extent there is any development, know that there's some change, there's some differences between what's in the amended and restated master bill and the planning commission regs for those particular issues, if you want to give us a list. But it would be impossible for us to have to go through the process of changing this.
Would it be out of line to just put on the record a statement that what they're requesting is no longer something that or is not something that the planning commission can do, so that there is something that you have to look back on if somebody ever said something about us not doing that part of the approval?
And it does say whatever applicant regulations are.
It's also, there's some boilerplate at the end that says it's subject to existing law, applicable law controlling, section K. So, I mean, it's more restrictive among such laws, rules, and regulations. So, I mean, I think it is already subject to, that's implied in every master bill.
Well, and truth of the matter is, if they came for a building permit, they'd have to go by the code anyway. But if you did pass some kind of a resolution that says that we see no problem with the language, but we cannot approve.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, just to note that, this has been a probably 2.5, almost 3-year effort by the board. I don't know that this has ever been done in the city of Batesville to this size, of a neighborhood this size, to this effort. To go door to door to get notary signatures of each homeowner has been a huge undertaking. Thank you, Barrett and his team, for helping with that process. To really just help clean up the language and protect some of the landowner properties up there, and just again help enforce was rules that we all try to have up there. But yeah, the changes were all very, very minimal. But it was more so just language change. It was the process in order to update this has been such an undertaking. So we would look for some leniency there, or whatever we can to check this off the list so we can get this behind us.
So what would the verbiage need to be again, Rob? And people listen, everybody listen so you can make a motion.
That you find no problems with the language, and especially with that final paragraph, whatever that was that you're referring to, but that the planning commission cannot approve the bill of assurance.
I have a motion.
Yeah, no problems with the language as presented, but we cannot approve the bill of assurance.
Second.
Any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, guys.
If we could have like a resolution or something that we can attach to this.
We'll have minutes, would that be
Yeah, we
good?
can do the minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be something notarized. It's like a, document filing land records with this, but yeah, something like that. We could get.
Yeah, we can. Who would prepare that? Chad?
Would your staff be able to prepare something?
I think so.
Chairman?
Yeah, I think I can prepare something consistent with what you just voted. That's okay? Good.
All right, is there any old business that we need to discuss? I didn't see anything. Okay. Finding no old business, is there any new business?
Make a
With
motion
that,
to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Jim.